Welcome to the Explainer. So today, we're looking at something way more important than just a standard academic curriculum. We're going to be exploring the framework of a course on environmental studies. But honestly, think of it less as a dry, boring syllabus and much more as a literal survival guide, an urgent roadmap for our planet. I mean, Earth is the only rock we know of in the entire solar system that actually supports life. And right now, human society is standing at a massive crossroads. So let's unpack this roadmap together, shall we? To really wrap our heads around the stakes here, we've got to start with the micro perspective. Because despite the absolute, mind-boggling vastness of the Earth itself, life actually only exists in this unbelievably thin enveloping layer. It's called the biosphere. Think of it as a remarkably fragile, super thin shell where all these continuous interactions among various life forms take place, and the whole shebang is fueled by just one single energy source, the sun. It's incredibly small compared to the planet as a whole, which makes protecting it just absolutely crucial for our survival.
Okay, let's dive into this. What we have here is a really striking contrast between the sheer, vibrant beauty of nature and the harsh, honestly pretty grim reality of environmental degradation. We aren't just talking about abstract academic concepts today. No, we are talking about the real-world stakes for our biosphere. We're going from these vibrant, life-filled ecosystems to barren, decaying landscapes. This fragile layer of life is under immense, immediate pressure.
Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. We'll hit 5 essential journey markers. 1. Life in the biosphere. 2. Our environmental foundations. 3. Managing natural resources. 4. Global environmental threats. And finally, 5. Protecting our future. Starting right off with sections 1 and 2, Life in the biosphere and our environmental foundations.
And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute core of our current dilemma. See, historically, for a really, really long time, there was this deeply symbiotic relationship between human beings and nature. Basically, we lived in a state of balance. But currently, well, we're seeing excessive human interference and some highly unsustainable practices. Because of this dramatic historical shift, the lives and livelihoods of literal millions of people are now at immediate risk. Which brings us to Block 1, an introduction to environment. We break this down into our environment, ecosystems, and major ecosystems. Now look, these aren't just vocabulary words to memorize for a test. They provide the fundamental awareness of Earth's resources and that incredibly complex human-environment relationship we just talked about. Since we're at that critical crossroads, this foundational knowledge is absolutely required if we're going to search for better alternatives and build a sustainable future.
Moving on to Section 3, Managing Natural Resources.
The source material points out a really fundamental truth here. Natural resources provide the base for human sustenance by providing vital ecosystem services. But there's a catch. There has been a substantial and, frankly, alarming decline and degradation of these very resources over the years. And this isn't just some theoretical loss on a spreadsheet. It has a direct, negative impact on the exact ecosystem services that you, I, and literally every living thing rely on every single day just to survive. So, the crucial point is that we've got to understand the specifics of these resources to actually manage them properly. Block 2 covers our natural resources, diving straight into land and water, forest resources, biodiversity, and energy. By exploring these units, we can map out the distribution and availability of everything we need, understand the root causes of their degradation, and most importantly, identify the urgent methods we need for conservation. Next up is Section 4, Global Environmental Threats. Let's move to this next part and see how this builds, because this is really the inciting incident of our whole narrative. Humans are now confronting severe environmental issues at every conceivable level. I mean, it starts from the deeply local and scales all the way up to the massively global. As you'll see, what happens right in our immediate backyards seamlessly connects to the health of the entire planetary system. Think of this escalating scale right here as a mental model for how the course actually categorizes environmental degradation. On the local side, we see the immediate hazards, right? Pollution of our air, water, and soil. We're dealing with noise, radiation, thermal pollution, alongside some really critical waste management issues. But look at how these local issues scale up. Over on the global side, we face massive threats: global warming, acid rain, and ozone depletion. It clearly and kind of terrifyingly illustrates the upward trajectory of our impact.
Block 3 unpacks this whole situation completely through biodiversity threats, environmental pollution, waste management, and those overarching global environmental issues. You have to think of these not just as textbook chapters, but as a detailed inventory of the specific damages we are causing. We absolutely must understand these mechanisms comprehensively if we're ever going to create effective mitigation strategies or, figure out ways to dispose of waste with minimal harm to the environment.
And that brings us to Section 5, Protecting Our Future. This final phase focuses heavily on addressing the policies, beliefs, and practices associated with actually protecting the environment. Because, let's be real, simply identifying the threats is essentially useless without the proper frameworks to enforce change. We need both strict legal structures and strong moral compasses to guide our way back to that historical, symbiotic relationship we talked about at the very beginning.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this final block bridges these seemingly distinct worlds. We move from top-down environmental legislation to human communities, and finally into environmental ethics. It really highlights how strict top-down government policy absolutely has to work hand-in-hand with grassroots community actions and our own deeply held personal beliefs. It's the whole package. So I want to leave you with this final, incredibly vital question to chew on. What is your ethical role in protecting the biosphere? This isn't just a curriculum to be passively absorbed, guys. It's a literal call to action. That very thin, fragile layer of life we all share is calling on us to transform this academic knowledge into deeply personal and urgent responsibility. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now it's up to you to take this knowledge out into the world and make a real difference.